has a question. Can we trade McGlinchey? Who could we get, you think? So go ahead, Rohan. Well, go ahead and answer this. What do you think?
So I personally, I mean, we can trade McGlinchey. It's not like we can't. We do save the 10.88 million. He's on a 5th-year deal, so it's fully guaranteed. But we don't take any money if we trade him. But I don't think we will, and I don't think the market value will be high. The reason is McGlinchey already. He's a run blocking right tackle, which isn't really ideal in other systems. The ideal kind of right tackle, right, is a pass protector who's got the ability to move as well in the run game. McGlinchey's kind of the opposite. He's got good feet for the run game, but he's still developing as a pass protector. He's also coming off a season-ending torn quad injury, which some people may feel could be like at the tackle position. Some doctors may have the fear that you can't really return to your old athletic form, which is McGlinchey's specialty. So I don't think that there's going to be a market for McGlinchey. At max, it'd be a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick for Mike McGlinchey. And at that point, I don't think the 49ers are really benefiting themselves because Mike McGlinchey right now is a starting right tackle. You already have so much turnover coming on the offensive line. You're starting Aaron Banks, who wasn't a starter last year. Right guard might be a new starter. And so if you move McGlinchey, you're going to also have to find a solution at right tackle. And that's a position that is very important because obviously Trey Lance is now the quarterback. You want to protect your quarterback as well as possible. So I think McGlinchey provides the highest upside at right tackle. I don't think we move him.
I agree with you. The main question is not who you could get. It's like, how are you going to replace him? And there's not like a bunch of right tackles on the market right now that everybody's like, fiending over. And like I said, I'm not a big, like we just talked about 2 extremely good positions of strength that the 49ers do really well at. That's, picking linebacker talent, picking defensive line talent. One thing that I can't say I'm super confident about is their ability to identify guys in the draft and the offensive line, because we haven't really seen them draft a stud that, we could hang our hat on and be like, this is the guy, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, Fernando Orellana, also believes the same way you believe. So let's go. Let's end on this, Rohan. By the way, you've done an amazing job so far.
Thank you.
We're up to 30 people, watching. If you guys haven't subscribed to Rohan Sports, go to his Twitter. He just updated the link finally after however long I had to tell him, dude, your YouTube link isn't working. So he updated it. It is the right YouTube link. Go there so you could get more from Rohan. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, just go there and click the subscribe. I'll give you a second. Awesome. And then make sure to follow here. We're going to have Rohan on a lot more because I love this guy, man. He's really smart and he has
It's reciprocated, man. It's reciprocated.
I appreciate it. So you picked extremely right when you said what the 49ers were going to do. You said that they're going to restructure Armstead. You said that they're going to restructure Ward, which I still think is going to happen. You even said they're going to restructure Kittle, which nobody was saying. You were the first person to say it, and it actually happened. So now that you've seen what the 49ers have done, what do you expect the next moves to be for the team, knowing what is out there and also knowing what the team needs?
Yeah, so in no really order, the internal moves that I believe should happen are 3 extensions. You hit on one of them. I do think the team has to extend Jimmy Ward. He's got a $12.94 million cap hit. He's going into his age 31 season, but he played it extremely well in his last year. He's somehow gotten healthier as his years have gone on, so the injury concerns kind of have gotten away. He's played very well. He played very well last year, and he was durable. So I think that he should be a cornerstone for this especially with the team maybe moving on from Jaquiski Tart. We're not sure yet. He should be a kind of staple in that secondary, especially as the leader that he is. So I do think that they should extend Jimmy Ward, be it to a 2-year extension, 3-year extension, and maybe even a 4-year extension. I think that Jimmy Ward is a move that should happen this offseason. Another guy is Emmanuel Mosley. He's on a 1-year deal now. He signed a 2-year, $10 million deal, extreme bargain last offseason. He's only getting $5 million this year. I think we should extend him. He's only 25 going into his age 26 season, similar to Charvarius Ward. You get him on a 2-3-year deal, maybe worth $7 to $8 million a year, maybe even a little more, just depending on the cornerback market. Guess what? It only hits in 2023 when the cap is expected to skyrocket. So it's okay to pay him a little more than you expect him to. I do think that should happen. He's a cornerstone. He's a top-end CB2. He performed extremely well last year. completion percentage was one of the best in the NFL in terms of completion percentage allowed, and it was on high volume too. He's gone up against the likes of guys like DK Metcalf, the Rams receiver trio, and he can play both inside and outside. The 49ers value that flexibility. The third move internally is extending Samson Ebukam. He's got a cap hit of $8.25 million this year, and he performed very well over the second half of that season. He was not only getting pressures, but he was a factor in the run game, and he also played more than 50% of the snaps in a majority of the games last season, showing how the 49ers think of him. So I do think that 8.25 million cap hit is a little unfeasible right now, especially with the 49ers looking to make moves. You can reduce that cap hit to around $4 million. He's also another young guy, and he's been a good pass rusher. You extend him for the future. You have another guy who you don't have to really worry about with this roster turnover. You have a guy that you can develop and become an even better pass rusher. It was his first year as a pass rusher last year. I think you continue that by extending Samson Ebukam. So those are the three moves that I think internally should happen.
So Rohan, you just figured out some moves that saves the team some money, gives them some more flexibility and some more, money to play around with in free agency. Who are they bringing in, Rohan? Who are they bringing in with all this money?
So there are a couple of guys, and I'll first start with the positions. One thing that we've talked about, right? Offensive line. Right now, they don't really have a right guard starter. And what I've heard is the 49ers are more inclined to address offensive line in free agency as opposed to the draft. One of the guys that I was high on was Morgan Moses. He signed a fairly good deal, 3 years, $15 million to be with the Baltimore Ravens. John Lynch did say that he might look for a offensive lineman to compete with Mike McGlinchey, who's coming off that injury. We don't know exactly how he'll look, although reports early are fairly promising. We might sign a guy. He doesn't necessarily have to be starting caliber, but first, starting off at guard, I do think that we bring in a right guard to start in free agency. There's a good abundance of right guards still available on the market. And while the guard price has been fairly high right now, I think with the amount that there are, there might be a couple of bargain signings should the 49ers wait it out and see who still remains on the free agent market. Some names for you: Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who played with the New York Jets last year. He knows the system. We've got Andrew Norvell, who played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Eric Flowers was just released today from the Washington, what is it again? Commanders now. Huh? Yeah, my bad for everybody. But Washington Commanders now. We have Billy Turner, who played with the Green Bay Packers. Try Turner, Billy Price. I can go on and on. Will Hernandez is another name. So there are a good amount of right guards left on the market for the 49ers to have. Another position that they could obviously address right now is safety. I personally am for the group that brings back Jaquazi Tart. I honestly think that has a much more realistic chance now of happening. Doesn't seem like there's a high safety market at the moment. Tyrann Mathieu is kind of the last safety remaining. Apart from that, though, there are a lot of solid safeties, but I think Tart leads the pack, and I think the 49ers may be more inclined to re-sign him to a one-year deal. If they don't, there are names like Terrell Edmonds who are on the market that could come cheap, and that's another young option should the 49ers continue their kind of streak of going towards younger players. Terrell Edmonds is a very solid fit in this defense, and you also could look to draft a safety. I do think that there are a good amount of options on the market still. You have Landon Collins, who was released earlier this week. But Terrell Edmonds, Anthony Harris, if you want more of a coverage safety, you got Jabril Peppers. And so there's a solid amount of names out there that the 49ers could look out to get if they don't re-sign Tart. I do think that they probably address right tackle as well. I'm not sure on exactly who it'll be, but they probably address kind of a backup right tackle to go along with it. And I won't be opposed if they go out and get Jason Verrett as well. Incentive-based, maybe a 1 year, $2 million deal, return and play in training camp, see how he goes.
I like it. Raphael 562 Niners, most just signing with the Dolphins. Do you see the Niners drafting a running back, or Rohan, is there anybody in free agency that you think they might try to bring in?
Yeah, and so to answer the question, I do think that they're not done at running back, right? Right now, they have 3 running backs really on the roster. They have Elijah Mitchell, they have Trey Sermon, and then they have JaMychal Hasty, who they tendered to a 1-year deal, and I think that has been official now. So they have 3 running backs on the roster. The 49ers like to run about 5 running backs, maybe 4 to 5 running backs. They cut one last year when they had a group of 6. So we could see them go as much as 5 running backs on the roster next year. Those 3 are on there. We could see 1 free agent and then one guy that we draft. There's a good amount of running backs in this class. Some guys later in the rounds, Tyler Beatty from Missouri. He's a fairly solid pass catcher, caught 54 passes at Missouri this past season. The 49ers are looking for a third down back. especially with Anthony Lynn in the mix. So he could be an option, but there are a very good amount of options in free agency. I know JD McKissic just got off the board, but he was signed to a fairly good deal, 2 years, $7 million. So the running back market might not be as high as we expected. There could be very cheap guys in the later rounds in free agency. We could potentially bring back Jeff Wilson Jr. The Miami Dolphins went with Mostert, so we could bring back Jeff Wilson Jr. He could be a very solid guy to kind of retain. Another guy that we could keep on the lookout, we signed him last offseason, Wayne Gallman, fairly solid pass protector, guy for Trey Lance that we could keep around. But there are a very good amount of options. I think we potentially signed one running back, and then we end up drafting another running back in a very, very good class because the 49ers might be inclined to go BPA in this class. So that's kind of my opinion on running back.
Maybe Matt Breida comes back too.
Ooh, that could be a good option.
Right. He played pretty well with Buffalo before he got injured. Rohan, excellent job so far. Before we leave, I just want one hot take, Rohan. One hot take, all right? Are the 49ers going to make any type of splash this offseason? Any player that you could think of, big name guy that they might bring in?
All right, so you're asking me if there was a guy, who do you think it could be? Because personally, sure. I don't believe that there are going to be any splashes after Travarius Ward. I do think that we are kind of done with splashes. We're going to go with the bargain signings right now to fill out the roster. But we've seen how markets go so far. I think that potentially if we get a guy, it could be a guy like Will Fuller at wide receiver to potentially bring wide receiver depth. We could also sign a guard if a guard is viewed as, one of those big kind of guys, because there aren't really many starting holes apart from the offensive line potentially at right guard that are still being able to fill it, right? We got a good quarterback right now. We have a solid running back room in terms of the starters and Elijah Mitchell. We have a wide receiver room. We've got the tight end. We could sign another tight end. That maybe that's a position, because we have been looking for a tight end number 2. I think tight end could definitely be in the mix. OJ Howard just went for a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. I think that is way fairer than the tight end market that has already happened. Tight ends have been expensive, I'll tell you that. We've seen CJ Uzomah go for $8 million a year. We saw Tyler Conklin go for $7 million a year. We saw Evan Engram go for $9 million a year. David Njoku's expected to get 10 plus. So we've seen these deals that are very high. But OJ Howard just got, 1 year, $3.5 million deal. So if a guy like Rob Tonyan wants to come join the 49ers, it could be a fairly cheap deal. Evan Engram is still out. Actually, no, Engram was gone. He went to Jacksonville.
Yeah, he just went to Jacksonville.
But guys like Eric Ebron are out there. If we want an old guy, or if we want a veteran, Austin Hooper just got released as a post-June 1st cut by the Cleveland Browns. He could be a very solid fit with George Kittle. So tight end could be a position where we could look to potentially splash or get a guy who might be of a higher caliber and pay him at a bargain price.
Yeah, I think Hooper to the Niners is something to keep your eye on, because I think Kyle Shanahan really likes Hooper. And then I like Bob Tonyan too. I think him and Kittle are like really close. So I think that could be something that eases Jimmy leaving, bring in another one of Kittle's good friends in Tonyan, so that way he still has a bestie on the squad at all times.